Welcome to How Can I Keep From Singing, a podcast where we explore the power of singing together. My name is Stuart Stotts, coming to you from rural Wisconsin, and my guest today is Betsy Rose.
We've got our whistles, you've got a gun, we've got our cameras, keep you on the run. We got the joy, got the power, got the love. You got nothing we can't rise above. We got the power.
Betsy Rose is a singer, songwriter, longtime performer, traveler. She began writing early in her life, inspired by the civil rights movement. Betsy was active in the early days of the women's music movement in the mid-70s, touring and singing throughout the country. Her first meeting with Thich Nhat Hanh in 1987 broadened her focus to include more spiritual and specifically Buddhist themes. Betsy took her music through Asia and Africa in 2015-16, singing with grassroots women's organizations, community organizing groups, and children. Currently, she's active in the massive uprisings of activism, singing at rallies, vigils, demos, and more in response to the general demolition of government and social service institutions. Betsy is a longtime friend and an ongoing inspiration to me. Welcome to How Can I Keep From Singing?
Oh, thank you, Stuart. You choked me up just on that last part. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, we've been part of worlds together, and I appreciate it so much. And I love what you're doing with this podcast.
So Betsy, you and I, as I understand it, we have parents who were ministers. So we spent some time in church. And I wonder if we could just start there thinking about your early influence with music. I'm sure it goes beyond that, but that might be one place to begin.
Thanks, Stuart. And I had forgotten about that. We got to talk about that more sometime. Well, I was raised in the church, obviously, and my dad was a kind of a rare beast, so to speak, in the 50s and 60s. And he was a very progressive, socially attuned political guy. And he served in communities a lot that were not really, nobody was like that in the 50s that we knew. We were in Oregon, we were in small town Rock Springs, we were in New England, small town kind of thing. And he really stuck to his principles, and he preached a good sermon about the radical, revolutionary nature of Jesus. And somehow people liked it, because he did it well. So I really grew up around a very informed household. He was the one that brought the civil rights music home to me. I was 11 or 12 in the early 60s, and he brought home, I think, the SNCC Freedom Singers, an album of theirs with Pete Seeger. And for me, I'd already been playing guitar, but I had never heard songs being made up in the streets in the moment. And something about that was like, wow, this isn't just Joan Baez's child ballads. Much as I love them, that's how I learned to play guitar. But it was like the real thing right now. And that's when I started writing songs. So that was the church for me.
Also in church, there is a whole tradition, of course, of singing hymns or maybe in the choir. Was that part of your upbringing as well?
The singing was so important. Our whole family sang. My parents were great harmonizers. I was very musical. I think a lot of people say, I didn't like church much, but I love the music. And thank God for the music, right? But what I've enjoyed as a songwriter now is rewriting certain hymns for gender reasons or for widening the sense of the sacred. Like instead of "This is my Father's world," I've written a version of "This is a sacred world." Every summer I lead singing and song at a church retreat from my parents' old church up in Seattle. They have a five-day retreat anyway, and I rewrite things to make it something everyone can sing and feel good about.
The words matter, and something that people can get behind without tripping over the meaning of some old word that no longer is relevant.
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck on that. You want to get the larger meaning.
To allow people to really put their hearts into it. So, Betsy, you raised that way. I assume you probably went to college or something like that, and then became a traveling folk singer.
That's right. To my surprise. Yeah, no, I went to college and was trying to debate whether to go, for what to major in, for God's sake. I ended up majoring in English because it's sort of a catch-all. But yeah, I thought maybe I'd go to, it was Chicago had some PhD in something, history of ideas. I thought, oh, that's grand. I'll go for that. And it was so funny, Stuart, because I also was playing guitar and out singing in coffee houses a bit and so forth. And to take the graduate record exam, you had to sign up at a certain date. You had to fill out a form and sign up. And it was one of those choices by omission. I just kept forgetting to do it until I missed the deadline. And it was sort of like, oh, guess I'm not going to grad school. And that was exactly what was meant to be, you know. So yeah, I was in Cambridge. I was out in the Nameless Coffee House, which was this incredible college students started free coffee house with folkies like me, no alcohol. And you got to do like a 3-song set, and they'd have like 6 singers a night. So many of us started out there. People whose names are quite well known now started out at the Nameless. And it was like great because a lot of folk singers have to kind of cut their teeth in bars because that's, you know, and I don't know, at least in my day it was. And what a horrible place to sing original, heartfelt music. Couldn't be worse.
So there's this tension between being a songwriter, you're writing songs that have meaning and having people sing along. And every sort of folk singer addresses that tension in a different way. Some will fill their sets with sing-alongs. Some will put in one because it feels obligatory. Some over the years, I think, grow to appreciate the power of including more of that in their set. And yet maybe it means you can't do this latest song that you wrote because there isn't time for it. How did that manifest for you? And then how did that progress over time?
Oh, Stuart, that's a wonderful question. Well, so there's being raised in the church with a tradition of everybody singing. It's not a more formal, I'm going to say probably Catholic church where the priest or the leader is doing a lot of the chanting. It's very participatory. So I think that's in my bones and just all the singing we did as a family. When I started writing as a young songwriter, I did not think about people singing along. I was enchanted with everything from Dylan to Joni Mitchell in terms of the craft of writing. And I was also a teenager and I had to get my angst out. So I've got notebooks that I still have. Yay! I have these spiral notebooks with my 15-year-old handwriting of songs I wrote. They were not sing-alongs. They were not. I think it changed when I got involved in the women's music movement in 1975, maybe. This thing swept in of women making music for women, by women, etc. And I just fell right into it. There was a democratization going on there of music that I hadn't seen since this, except for the civil rights movement and Pete Seeger, I think, but probably more. But hey, this is for all of us. Everybody has a voice. That kind of, I'm not so special. I happen to have the mic, but let's do this together. So that, particularly the women's music movement, really shifted me. And it took a minute because I was really in that solo singer-songwriter mode. And it was lovely. I got to express my heart deeply and openly, and people heard me, but I made that shift. So that's where it started. And I still, to this day, am very much a singer-songwriter with a lot to say on some songs, but the poetry matters to me, all of that. So not everything is a sing-along by any means. And there's almost like I live in a number of worlds. Out in the street, got to be a sing-along. Ain't going to happen without it. But in other settings, I can really let out this other part of me, which we'll talk about more. But that's kind of how it unfolded for me.
Yeah, I think that, like I say, that tension is pretty common. For you have the craft of songwriting, and there are also certain things that make songs possible to be sung by folks.
And if I may add one thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just remembered one of the ways I got taught this is that people would sing along whether I asked them to or not. Like I hadn't thought of that, but for the right audience, all of a sudden you'll hear people kind of coming in and think, oh yeah, that really works. And I loved that they made it their own, you know?
Right. Yeah, at one level as a performer even, it just makes your show better if people are truly invested in singing along.
Yeah, I did one live album recording. I did more than one, but the one I'm thinking of in Cambridge, which was kind of the height of a certain part of my work. I recorded a live album. It had a nice big audience. We filled a theater twice. And it's so neat to have that live recording and hear everybody come in and be a big sound, but still recorded well so that the solo part. Anyway, it was just really wonderful to have that. We can block them if we really want. We can block them if we really want.
You're listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Betsy Rose. Betsy, let's leap all the way to the present, where you are out there singing as part of demonstrations and rallies on the street facing this upsurge in violence and all the things that we understand are going on in Minneapolis and elsewhere. How does singing with people work in that situation for you? What kinds of things do you bring? What's your experience?
Well, there's at least two ways I've experienced it. And one is when there's a rally and it's organized and they've got a sound system and I am invited and all of that. And that I have pages and pages of songs and song lists so that when I'm in the heat of the moment, I can look at my list and go, oh yeah, you want to do that, to just keep it going. It's an energy building offering. It really lifts the spirit. But I was at a beautiful interfaith group I'm involved in out here in Berkeley in the East Bay, California, at the ICE headquarters supporting an immigrant, Guillermo, who was having his hearing about deportation. And I found myself, and I'm learning this, that a constant rada, 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 no matter how wonderful it feels, that energy, need a breather, especially when the participants are there for 2, 3, 4 hours and, they need something different. And I found myself integrating quiet songs every now and then and seeing how it helped. And I thought it worked really, really well. Normally, we don't do that because it's a program where there's a little bit of music and then a lot of speakers and then a little bit of music and a lot of speakers. You know the drill. And therefore, the music needs to be usually energizing and participatory, etc. So that's I've got a microphone and I know how to use it form. But there's another form I've had incredible experiences with where I am a participant in an action or in a vigil or in a street moment. And I have my guitar, but I'm not a designated singer, but I just bring my little guitar. I have a baby Taylor on my back. And I'll tell you one story that was so powerful. I'm choking up a lot today. This is a very emotional time for all of us. And I'm glad I can feel it. But it's my heart is, everybody's heart is breaking. I know you feel this way too. I'm so grateful that I have music as an outlet and as something to offer to this situation. So winding back in 2000 something, I went out to DC. 2000, it was pre-Obama. So it must have been Bush too. Went out with Code Pink for a week of lobbying and protesting and doing what Code Pink does best. I did that because I felt like with the way things were going with this administration and Bush, like it couldn't get any worse. Little did we know that I needed to step up. I wanted to be more bold and courageous and risk-taking. And I thought, who's going to teach me? And I thought, Code Pink is going to teach me. Wonderful people. So we went out to DC and we did lobbying and we sang in the Senate rotunda and we interrupted Senate hearings. It was quite for me as a minister's daughter, Stuart, I was like, this is not a nice girl. I'm not being a good girl, which I was. Let me tell you, I was a good girl. I mean, I was on a Heritage Foundation, not on the panel. We interrupted a Heritage Foundation, which is this very right-wing thing, having this panel about something. And we took over the stage very peacefully, and Medea Benjamin read a proclamation, and I sang, and we were escorted out, not roughly, thank God. I was shaking in my boots. Not only this is scary, but nice girls don't do anything like this, So all that said, very helpful to me. So there was a big demo out in the streets one night at the White House gates or whatever, wherever you are. And the police were lined up and they had a caution tape across the sidewalk so we couldn't get close enough to the fence to climb over it. I wasn't going to do that, but some people probably would. And, it wasn't just Code Pink. Obviously, it was a big bunch of DC activists. We purported to be peaceful, but there are people in these mass actions who are not all on the same page about that. Fair enough. I began to feel a little worried because there was some nasty shouting going on and there was some pushing in toward the police. And I saw the body language of the police with their batons and this was pre-Darth Vader masks, so at least we could see their faces. Anyway, and I thought, this is not going well. This is not going well. And I just thought, we need to sing. So I just pulled out my guitar. And I didn't say a word. I just started singing. I think We Shall Not Be Moved. I can't remember, but I bet that's what it was. And it's magic, Stuart, because I'm one little voice. I don't have a mic, but two or three people around me hear me singing and they start singing. Well, you can see geometrically how that amplifies. For every three that joined, 6 or 9 or 12 joined. And pretty soon the whole group was singing together. And everything calmed down. We calmed down. But the most beautiful thing in a way was watching the police calm down. And I could see it the way their shoulders dropped. Like I could see their bodies just relax a little bit. And so this went on for a while. And then I went up and talked to one of the officers, and because too long a story to tell, but I went and talked to him about something that the crowd wanted, some people in the crowd wanted. And the police said, oh yeah, we can accommodate that. There were these young people that had walked all the way from Arizona and they wanted to get arrested. They wanted to get arrested. And that meant they had to cross the yellow tape. So I said, yeah, these young people really want to get arrested. And he said, we can arrange that. They did. They very gently got arrested and handcuffed. But I'll never forget it. And it's not the only time that's happened, but it's probably the one that most sticks with me. So I've learned to read the crowd as best I can and try to sense, when do we need something different? And if I can offer it, I will. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, music's a unifier, but it's also a way to address the mood, like you say, whether the energy
Indeed.
needs to come up, or maybe there are times people need to just center down and
Yeah.
come to terms with the moment in a different kind of way.
If I could say one more thing, jumping up to the present, I was listening to live coverage curated live coverage of the Today in Minneapolis on our local Pacifica station. And the voices of all the participants, all the Minnesotans that the interviewer was catching pieces of, were so adrenalized, so harsh and loud. Of course, they've just seen a man be murdered. Okay. So of course they are. But I thought, this is what helps escalate the energy with these brutal ICE people who have lost their souls. And I thought, if I was there, I just pictured that, pardon me, but I just have these images sometimes. If I had been there, I would have just reached out and took the hand of two other people and started singing, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People," and just see what happened. And I had pictured encircling some ICE folks singing that. It's just like, sometimes you just got to do something different. And maybe it's another de-escalation technique. That's a way to say it.
All of this work that you're doing around politics and community building, standing up to oppression, is also grounded in your deep engagement with Buddhism. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the role, in part briefly maybe about what Buddhism means to you, but how does music appear in your Buddhist practice?
It all started, Stuart, with an amazing thing that looked like a coincidence, and nothing is a coincidence. In 1987, I had moved to California the year before with my dear partner, and had gone to a beautiful master's program in creation-centered spirituality with Matthew Fox, taking a break from the music career because I'd left a big career on the East Coast, and I just didn't have the energy to start over in California. So I thought, I need a break, and I'm going to do something different. So all of that began it. A woman I knew was invited to a private invitational artist retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh. And this was before he really was huge. He was very big, but he wasn't huge. And he was doing private curated retreats with people that he thought would bring the core of the Dharma, of the teachings of the Buddha, to America in a skillful way. So what he said to us artists was, please don't use your art to try to sound like a Vietnamese Buddhist, or a monk. Please write or make or dance or theater a Western form that brings these teachings of peace, of inner peace, of outer peace. Well, I took it to heart, and I went off in the woods. We were down at Ojai Foundation, and I started singing, and I wrote this really upbeat, fun little country Western song. I call it jokingly country Eastern, to the three refuges, which are usually chanted. As you know, most chanting is solemn and slow and no melody shift. I take refuge in the Buddha. it's great for the meditation hall. But I just got going and I was like, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life, da 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 da. And with the little bluegrass thing. And I thought, oh man, this is so transgressive. I'm going to get dinged for this. But he asked some of us to share what we were doing. I shared it and he just loved it. He loved it because it was what he wanted. And anyway, I could go on about that, but that's how the music and the Dharma, the teachings, the truth came together for me. And he invited me to come with him to subsequent retreats to sing the songs I was creating to his teachings, because he was trying to reach not only Americans, but Vietnamese refugees. Vietnamese boat people were here at that time, and their children were growing up. And the children wanted nothing to do with this old Buddhist stuff that mom and dad are doing. We want, we're American, don't you know? And yet he knew, anyway, he wanted them to have these values. So he thought I could be a bridge because my songs were very accessible. So I got to tour and work with him for a number of years, a few years. I went to Eastern Europe with him in Czechoslovakia and sang at his first visit there. What a privilege. I knew nada about Buddhism. I was a neophyte. But sometimes we artists have a way of channeling more than we know. And you know what that's like. You're a wonderful writer. It comes over you and you find things coming out of you that you didn't know you knew. You seem to be tapping into a larger source of universal wisdom. And I don't know, but I tell you, that's what it was like for me. So I was able to be useful and helpful without being a Buddhist scholar at all. So.
I'm guessing that some of those songs also had a sing-along quality to them, so that people could
very much so.
Could take the lessons just like we learned in kindergarten or something. You sort of take what you're trying to learn and put it to music, and it goes deeper.
Yes, almost all of them are largely or entirely sing-along. One of the ones that's traveled the world, it's, my God, somebody put it on YouTube singing it and it had like, I don't know how many million hits. It's amazing, but it's breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew, etc. It's a teaching of his on something to repeat in your mind as you meditate, breathing in. I know I am breathing in, breathing out, etc. Anyway, and yeah, I wrote it at a retreat with children. I think anything you put to music, and you and I have worked with children a lot, and I know you have the same passion that I do for creating songs that they can sing that will affirm values that they will want for the rest of their life, whether they know it or not. And there's no better way to get something to stick in a person's soul and heart than music. I've met people who were students of mine in the school here. I did a music program for 20 years on singing, songwriting, and social change, or not social change, I'm sorry, social history. Lifting up the hidden voices from history. I have run into baristas, store clerks, whatever, who say, aren't you the lady that taught us that song? And they'll start singing it, my work is done, mission accomplished.
So Betsy, you as a songwriter sometimes write songs that are intended for people to sing along. What are some of the things that make songs singable in your experience?
Oh boy. Oh, that's great. So many things. Not too many words, unless you have a song sheet, but let's imagine that you don't. Not too many words, not too complicated a melody. And that's, what am I saying? What's too many? What's the measure? I don't know. But I just know, my body knows, because I was singing along with Pete Seeger when I was very young and other things. My body knows when the rhythm and the flow and the melody and the words come easily. It's almost like you've always known this song, or it doesn't take a lot to sing it. People have come up to me after concerts and said, you spoke my heart. I don't know how you knew. There's a human experience that familiar enough that people they don't have to stretch too far to get it. A lively rhythm is one lovely thing, but doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. So that's in general, I would say that, Stuart. And then for rallies and demos, I have been involved in so many, I've heard so many different kinds of music. There's lots of different kinds that work, but for singing along, it's got to be simple. It's got to be, again, not complex. I made up a song 5 days ago, and sang it at this ICE interfaith thing on Saturday. Okay, and it goes, I've got a whistle, you've got a gun, I've got a camera, keep you on the run. I've got the joy, got the power, got the love. You got nothing, I can't rise above. And then it goes to we got. And there's more. But I think you can hear how pretty easy that is. It's a melody that's probably been used a million times in slightly different ways. And it has the repeated I got. There's like every line starts the same almost. So things like that. And it went great at the rally. People loved it.
Yeah. Ultimately, of course, the test of a sing-along song is, does the crowd sing along with you? And sometimes you go in with an idea that I've got this song, they're going to sing along, and it doesn't work, or whatever. So
I've been there. I've been there.
We all have, I think. One last question here. If you're going to a song circle, it might be something political, or it might be just people singing together. Have you got 2 or 3 songs that you feel like are generally successful for you in just ability to get people singing?
Well, of course, in one kind of setting like these rallies, it would be, We Shall Not Be Moved, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round. This Little Light of Mine, these are zipper songs, and you know all about that. Zipper songs are when you can zip out a verse or a word and zip in another one. So This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine. On a rally, it's going to be all around the courthouse, I'm going to let it shine. All around the immigrants, I'm going to let it shine. Till there's peace in every land, I'm going to, you know what I mean? It's like you can just go forever. So those were fantastically. In terms of my songs, there are ones that keep coming around being asked for over and over. I was just sitting with a friend who was dying a few weeks ago, and we sang together in women's circles, and she asked for this one. May you walk in your life as a warrior, clear and loving and strong. May you walk in your life as a warrior, trusting the path you are on. Very gentle, but very simple. And then the zipper is, may you walk in your life as a lover, as a dancer, as a healer. So anything that like that.
Betsy, I want to thank you so much for talking with me here today. And it's just been a great pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Oh, Stuart, it's been wonderful. And to be interviewed by a fellow musician who knows this realm so well, one of the most fun interviews I've ever had. So thanks a million.
You've been listening to How Can I Keep From Singing, a production of Common Arts. My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today has been Betsy Rose.